Hi, I'm Matt, and today I have Erik Vanegas, who is an English teacher, but he's Colombian living in Colombia. So the cool thing is, his English he could pass as an American. Anyway, Erik, welcome, and what are we talking about today?
Well, first of all, Matt, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the way you talk about Bogota, the way you talk about Colombia, and I feel like many of your Latin American viewers really appreciate the way you talk about your experiences here. Without further ado, what we're going to talk about is language learning and how we can some tips about learning Spanish, and we will have a great time talking about it.
Sounds good. The thing is if you're an American, Canadian, or European, somewhere else in the world, and you plan on coming to Colombia, or for that matter, just anywhere in Latin America, Spanish is really, to some degree, a necessity because you don't find as many English speakers. So what he's going to tell us today is going to be so important. So
I would like to start mentioning, now that we are here in Bogota, is that our Spanish version is a little bit more simple compared to other versions of Spanish. You know, you got the Spanish, which is Castellano, the one that they speak in Spain, and they have these accents, like same thing with Mexico, they have like a different accent. Argentina, the same thing. And over here, what we can have is like a more simple version of it. And I think that's a big advantage. And I would like to start mentioning the first tip, which is practice. You gotta practice. There's no other way to do this thing, because we gotta think about that this is an ability that you're learning, and to do so you need the proper practice. You know, think about if you're learning how to play a guitar, you need to find the time to do the right way, to practice and get better every time. Same thing, let's say swimming, stuff like that. You need to find the time to practice. More than 20 minutes is just enough. And if you can practice with private tutors like me or many others that you can find, you just need like 2, 3, 4 classes a week, depending on how much time do you have. But other than that, if you just rely on the classes, you're not gonna get the progress that you want. There has to be a structure when it comes to practice. Talking about that, you just need to communicate. You don't need to worry too much about grammar. Like if I ask you what's the difference in your language, what's the difference between present perfect and present perfect continuous? Do you know what's the difference?
probably not.
So we don't either. Like we don't need to think too much about simple past or pretérito pluscuamperfecto or stuff like that. You just need to understand how you can say those sentences. Number 2, I think that you just need to learn full phrases, not just words. Words are important, of course, like hola, ¿cómo estás? Stuff like that, sure. But you just need to focus on the big picture. Nowadays we have AI, and you can also work with AI to, provide examples, because I have seen that a common mistake is that people, whenever they learn a word or a phrase, they just like write it down and they write the meaning of it, and that's it. And people tend to forget it. So that's not how our brain works. Our brain will remember the words or the phrases if you put it in a context. And that's what you can do with AI. You can ask ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, whatever AI you use, provide examples with this sentence. And then you read it out loud as many times as possible. And that will help you to remember the use of the phrase or the word. So that's a good one. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, some, and that's kind of how you remember someone's name. They always say their name 3 times or something when you meet somebody new, because the first time, if I said, hey, I'm Matt, you may not remember that. But if you say it in your head 3 or 4 times, you're more likely to remember. So that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And before we started, we were talking about some useful phrases. And do you remember which one was that? The one that I taught you?
Let me give. I know the second word was moscas.
Okay, that's good.
Penel.
Repeat after me. Por si las moscas.
Okay, one more time.
Por si las moscas.
Por si las moscas.
And what's the meaning of that?
Just in case.
There you go. Fluent in Spanish. So that's the way you do it. You just try, and this is the next tip. You need to go for it. You need to give it a try, just like he did. You just need not to be afraid of making mistakes, because again, this is an ability that you need to polish. You need to go easy on yourself, and when you make mistakes, that's part of the process. That's how you learn everything. Think about if you were taking classes on how to cook. Probably you were making mistakes at the beginning, and when you learn from your mistakes and you keep going, you get better at it.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the same thing.
Well, it's like sometimes I am, every once in a while I'll get a little comment where someone says I'm not pronouncing something right. And the thing is I know, I told you earlier, ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch. I know German. I worked in Europe some for years. I know a little bit of some other languages. I know a little bit of French. And so Spanish is kind of my new language.
Yeah.
And the thing I've always discovered is you just have to try it. Because, and I made this comment to you before we started, Europeans are more prone to try a new language than Americans. Because I think it's because they have so many languages around them, they kind of have to,
Sure.
And in the United States, we speak English. And so there's no reason to venture out and try. And honestly, unless you try and make the mistakes, you can't get better at it.
Absolutely.
So
yeah. And again, like what we're focusing is on the communication aspect, like you don't need to, what I mentioned before, of course, grammar is an important component, sure, but my next tip will go around prioritizing the sounds, like you don't need to worry too much about spelling, grammar rules, just like whatever you're hearing, and if you put it into practice and repeat over and over again, just like his new favorite expression, which is por si las
moscas.
There you go. So if you just prioritize the sound and you're not worrying how many words or what's the spelling, you just use it. And when you do that, there's like a very intimate connection between your ear and what you can produce, So you need to get bombarded by a lot of things, a lot of content that you can understand as much as possible. Of course, what you want, there's a theory called I+1, which is input plus one, meaning whatever level you are on any language that you're trying to learn, you need to be exposed to just a little higher things of complexity, And in that way, you will learn new stuff. Because I have come across to people saying, okay, you need just to be immersed into the language. And that is partially true. But think about if I just play soap operas to you 24/7. Maybe, first of all, you're not into soap operas, and maybe you will not understand everything, and you will be like, yeah, in some way, you're immersed into the language. However, what you got to do is just like focus on little aspects of the language and learn some stuff new out of it. And again, if you prioritize the sound, you will start acquiring the language, there's a big difference between learning the language and acquiring the language. I don't know if you had some story of how you learn your German.
I took a few little classes, but most of it was just using it. And I will be honest, it's hard to use it in Germany. And the reason I say that is because the moment they hear you, they all speak English. So they just start talking in English. And it's like, no, I want to practice my German.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sure. And with that in mind, I think that you gotta also use a mindful approach. We're bombarded by notifications 24/7. Our cell phone screen is just like lighting up every single minute. And when you're practicing for those 20 minutes or with your private lessons, you just need to be there, present, doing the thing. And believe me, I have seen like real progress with the people I work with when they're just like there. And they're like, oh my God, I just practiced for 20 minutes with this audio track. I have the transcript. I read it out loud, and I have learned so much vocabulary. And when they take a look at the time, it's just like 20, 25 minutes. So that's very important. You can't rely 100% on motivation, which is one important factor for sure. You need to try as much as possible to stay motivated. But there's times that you won't feel the motivation. So you need to find a balance between motivation and discipline. If you say, okay, every day it's going to be 20, 40, 30 minutes, and then I have 2 or 3 classes, you will see that progress. Because if you just rely on motivation, again, there's days that you don't feel like doing anything. So that's another thing. Like, it's not going to be fun all the times, but there's like some ways to do it fun, to make it fun, right? Like, for example, you told me that you know how to fly a plane.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many hours did you spend? Like,
well, I mean, to get your private pilot, I have a commercial pilot's license. Private pilots, minimum 40 hours, but most people, I think, take 60 hours a flight to get that license. Commercials, minimum 250 hours.
Okay.
And so yeah, it takes a lot of time. And while it 250 hours or even 60 hours or 40 hours doesn't sound like a lot, in flying, 40 hours could easily take you 3 or 4 months to do that, because you're going up for maybe an hour at a time.
Wow.
Plus it's expensive.
So let's figure it out. Yeah. And again, like, you see, there's like those aspects. Maybe you love the way you feel up in the sky, but you need that discipline. Yeah. There's like the combination of the 2 factors. Same thing when you're learning a language, yet it's not that expensive.
Yeah, it's a lot less expensive.
Yeah, yeah. I would like to mention that you need to involve other people. You know, like, again, there's people out there who says you just need to watch TV shows in Spanish, or you just need to read, and it's okay if you don't understand as much as possible. That's partially true, but you need to involve other people. I'm not just talking about the language coach, the teacher, whatever name you want to put it, but like for the expats out there here in Bogota, you know, you can just like connect with each other and practice. Maybe you know this, that whenever you learn something and you can teach it to someone else, first of all, it's very clear in your mind, and number 2, the way that you, just by teaching it to someone else, it will make it long lasting, and this applies perfect for language. So the next time you find a fellow expat, what is the expression that you're going to teach him or her?
So you're going to make me know this by the end of this this
That's
video.
The point.
Porcelain?
Porcilas moscas.
The moscas I got.
Yeah, and look at him. He was thinking about porcelain. You were like trying to go that way.
Well, that's a lot of times that's how I memorize words. Is I find something that it's similar to in my own language.
Yeah, yeah.
Same thing. Even if I meet somebody and they have a unique name, I try to
find
associate.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, again, and this goes into my next tip. So there's like different components to it. Number 1, what I have already mentioned, and you were doing it in the last bit, which is sounds. Sounds they have to be your top priority. Then vocabulary. You need to try to learn as much vocabulary as possible, but the approach that I use is a little bit different in the way that you can go online and find what are the 100 most used words in Spanish, and surely there has to be a video, a PDF, whatever, but you got to put them in context, and that's where I'm gonna give you a little peek of a private lesson with me, and you got to put it in that little frame so you can see how people are using the language, and then it's going to be easier for you to replicate it. And then on a third level, there comes grammar. But I guess what we were saying, like, native speakers don't know those rules, and why, if you're just trying to convey ideas, why should you learn those tricky aspects of it? Maybe you can see them applied and you start absorbing them, and then you can make it part of your speech. That will be a more natural approach to it. But also, it depends on what kind of objective do you have. If you're trying to get past an exam, of course they're gonna test that aspect. But if you're just like trying to talk to other people, then you need to, pay attention to those details. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, it's like I was thinking about, like, when you made so I have a somewhere around here I have a frequency dictionary, which tells you the most used words. And for me, I found that wasn't actually necessarily the best thing, because they weren't my most used words. Like, I'm a foodie. So I know, you can pretty much quiz me on most foods, and I know the Spanish version of it, like, you know, the different vegetables, the different meats and things, and those are never in the first 1,000 words.
They're not.
And those are practical, especially if whether you're somebody who's just moved here or somebody who is traveling for fun. So, I mean, those first 100 or 1,000 words are still important because they are part of the components. I've probably learned backwards because I've learned in situations like restaurants and things like that, grocery stores, and those are the things I'm probably best at. But putting them together, I know a lot of Spanish words. I probably know 2,000 or 3,000, 4,000. My problem is putting them together in a proper sentence. I can talk to you on a first grade level, like the things that a young kid would say, like the el sol is muy hermosa. You know, I can do those little simple sentences.
Yeah. And it's a cool way that you're putting this out, because of course a lot of people who are trying to learn a language, they just think that there has to be an A, B, C, which there is, but you need to try to get as much as possible from different areas. There are different fronts, like what you were saying, learning in the real way, which is like, okay, I want to order something. That's important. You need to know that, but you need to learn other things as well, like the vocabulary you can use at a cafeteria or like at a store, or how to introduce yourself. But again, it goes back to that way of learning. First, I need to see it. I need to understand what's going on. That's called language exposure. Then understand it, and then try to replicate it as best as you can. Of course, what we mentioned before, there's going to be tons of mistakes, and you just need to embrace them, you know?
Well, so like I've got one here for you. I have audiobooks of a guy named Paul Noble. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Each one is probably, I think, around 4 hours each, and there's 4 of them. So there's like level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And my problem, and I also have Pimsleur, which you probably heard of Pimsleur, and Berlitz. I have all of these, and I have the full course of all of them. The problem I find with those, and I even experienced this with German, I could get just so far listening. The problem is at some point you want to start seeing the word. And like the Paul Noble, the first one is great because the first 30 minutes, he tells you shortcuts, like information. Like most of the words that end in tion in English came from Latin, and so there's the cion equivalent. Reservado. He like reserved. He basically says that a lot of the words we have as ed might be auto.
Okay.
But he has all these little shortcuts, and he does them for I have his German, I have his Italian, I have all of them.
The whole thing.
I feel like once you've done the elementary part, all of a sudden the audiobooks for me just don't work anymore. I can't do the advanced part because I feel like you're trying to build. You didn't get your foundation good.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to build a house without a good foundation.
Solid. Yeah.
And so I can't progress. And then if I try Duolingo is fun for a while, but then it starts getting boring, and sometimes they either don't move you along fast enough, or they jump you ahead to where there's a knowledge gap that you don't have.
Sure.
And so I've always tried to build using all of these different components to try to progress myself, but I just feel like the fact that there's no human element, and that being said, I do need to tell you this. I had dinner with another viewer named Daniel. He and I have become good friends, and we're at a restaurant, and he starts speaking Spanish, and I'm like, where'd you learn your Spanish? And he said that he learned it just going to like little groups where you are forced to use Spanish, where there's no English. And I'm like, that's hard.
That's the thing. Like, there's no secret formula for this. There are theories about language acquisition, but nobody knows for sure what's happening in our brains when you're learning just any language. There are, like what you say, the human element, and I would tie it up to the structure, because if you're trying it with different things, at some point maybe you will find frustration along the way. You'll be like, oh, okay, I tried it so many times. I just have this tiny words, group of words, and I cannot put them together as you were saying. I think that one really cool exercise is to have small audios, like short audios, in which there's use of real language, like they're in different contexts, but they shouldn't be that long. And then what you got to do is work with the transcript. If you got the transcript, that's a fantastic exercise. So you can just like do your best to understand the transcript. So for the first step is to work with the transcript. So you're not working with the audio just yet. Trying to look up the words, the phrases, and then once you have done that part, and again, they happen to be that long, like max 1 minute, 2 minutes long, maybe.
Okay.
And then you listen to the audio following the transcript. So there is a key element here, which is repetition. So think about it. You have worked with the transcript for, let's say, 5 minutes, and then you play the track, and you're working over the same transcript, but now you're listening to the words, and then you can use that concept of prioritizing the sounds. After doing that, what you're gonna do is just listen to the audio without transcript. Maybe you will remember some of them, maybe you will remember most of them, maybe you will remember just a limited number. But there is like a clear light of, okay, yeah, I remember por si las moscas. I remember that they were saying, hola, mi nombre es Gustavo y tengo 38 años, and so on and so on. But there will be a more clear way of understanding what's happening there. And then the last part of that exercise would be you read the transcript out loud. So in that way, you're emulating those sounds that you have been just bombarded to. So I always say this to the people I work with, and there has to be repetition. But it has to be like a smart repetition, like what you guys say, you gotta work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much that. And then you gotta let the intuition part of it come into place. You got the exposure, you got like an understanding, you got repetition, and then comes the intuition. Like when you were trying to say por si las moscas, like I don't know what is por si las moscas, but I understand the whole phrase. We have been saying it over and over again. You just let it work because you already know what's the meaning of it, which, by the way, what is it?
Por si las moscas.
And what's the meaning?
Just in case.
Man,
and we said it
got
just in case because we were using 2 sets of microphones, and basically you need a plan B. That's what I always say with you need a plan B. Colombia could be your plan B.
There you go. Yeah.
Just in case.
Just in case. There you go.
Okay, so Erik, you gave us a ton of fantastic tips, and he is a teacher. So how can people hire you? How do they contact you, and how can they pay for your services?
That's a great question, Matt. So down in the description of the video, we're going to include my Instagram account. That's the one that I mainly use, which is English with Erik. And another account is coming up, which is Spanish with Erik, for all of the people who speak English and are interested in learning Spanish with me. How can they pay? I can use PayPal, Litio. I have a Colombian bank account, cash, if people have cash as well. And let me walk you through how the system works with me. So a person who's interested in working with me will pay for 12 lessons, okay? And I'm gonna say this in Colombian pesos, it will be 1,200,000 pesos, 1,200,000 pesos.
And which is about $300 US plus or minus, depending on the currency conversion.
Yeah.
So that's not 12 lessons. That's actually really a good price.
It is. And it's very flexible. I will show you the roadmap. I will give you all the material that you need to practice with. Of course, you're gonna get the lessons with me. What I recommend is at least, the very least to practice with me is twice a week. Of course, I know that there could be things that may happen, a trip or whatever. The commitment is that the person must keep on practicing, as we mentioned before, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just like to follow my lead, and they will keep on practicing for sure. So yeah, that's the answer to your question.
Okay, and I like the 12 lessons because that has you more committed, and so that's, and of course these are typically online, like through a Zoom call, you said, or Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, whatever.
Whatever the person feels more comfortable with working. Also, we can arrange some face-to-face in-person lessons. There will be like an additional charge to it, but we can work it out for sure. And also, very important to mention is that there's no expiration date to those 12 lessons. Like, again, if you gotta take a trip to renovate your visa or do whatever you need to do, and you cannot just like practice with me, we can place them on hold. It's not like there's like a time limit for them, like 1 month, 2 months now. So that's a good aspect to it as well.
Okay, I like it. So, well, thank you so much for doing this, and I hope that this gets you some business, and I hope that you're able to help some of my viewers with their Spanish.
Thank you.
So thanks so much.
Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you around, my friends. Hasta luego.
Sounds good.